President Trump is on the last leg of his week-long swing through Asia. So far, he says he signed trade and tariff deals with Japan, Cambodia, and Malaysia. And he says a deal between the U.S. and South Korea is, quote, pretty much finalized. Tonight, President Donald Trump will sit down with Chinese President Xi Jinping to talk trade. And Trump says he expects to walk out with a deal in hand. The leaders of the world's largest economies have a lot of ground to cover, though, from the future of TikTok to the sale of soybeans and restrictions on rare earth minerals, just to name a few. I want to bring in Micah McCartney, who is a Taipei-based journalist who covers U.S.-China relations for Newsweek magazine. Micah, thank you so much for being with us. This meeting between President Xi and President Trump comes at a time when tensions are extremely high between these two countries. The biggest friction, though, has been about trade. What are you going to be watching for?
Well, thanks for having me, Elizabeth. The jury is still out on what will be decided. Since the two sides led in Malaysia last week, it was Scott Benson, the Treasury Secretary, and the Chinese side. They have been signaling that they expect some positive movement on this. First, the TikTok deal that was arrived in September, the ownership sharing deal with its Chinese owner ByteDance, that's expected to go through as planned. Also, China is expected to make some soybean purchases. That's after months of practically zero purchases that have really affected American farmers. We see reports coming out of last night that there are already 3 shipments of soybeans lined up. But on the issue of trade, on the issue of tariffs, although officials have said we're not expecting to raise tariffs beyond the 100% rate again that President Trump threatened a couple of weeks ago, we're kind of looking at this to be an ongoing process. It's not likely to wrap up all today.
Well, looming large over this meeting is China's dominance on rare earth minerals and President Trump's deals across Asia, most recently in Japan, to try to weaken China's control. Do you think it's working?
Well, the administration has certainly made up for lost time when it comes to seeking sources of rare earths, and this deal is being one of them. There was another deal recently made with Australia to expand cooperation there. But it will be a long process. You know, the fact is China controls something like 90% of rare earth refining, 70% of rare earth production. So they've got a bit of a head start, and this does have sweeping security implications, right? Because these rare earths, this class of 17 minerals, which are very hard to get out of the ground and processed, they're used in all kinds of defense applications, engines, radar, missile guidance systems that are necessary for modern militaries. So it's a years-long, maybe decades-long process. So we'll see what happens.
The two leaders, as you mentioned, also expected to finalize the TikTok deal. They just need to sign this agreement. Now, of course, this brings up a lot of national security concerns. Is this deal, though, important to maintain a connection of sorts between China and the U.S. and the idea of keep your friends close but your enemies closer? Do you think that that's what this deal is about?
You know, possibly. It's become pretty politicized, this show. I think it's because of the concerns around national security and the very public, I would say, yeah, and I think it's probably it has ended up being the easiest of the deals to make. On the U.S. side, there's still a lot of concern. Some people have voiced concern that ByteDance still has the algorithm and could. And so because the Chinese Communist Party can ask for information from a Chinese company at any given time, this could potentially be abused that way, is what critics say. However, yeah, we'll see how it seems like this issue is sort of been put to rest for now on the Chinese side.
The other major topic
they
for
seem
this
satisfied
meeting.
with it.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see they've actually signed that document. But the other major topic for this meeting, and it actually has to do with where you are right now, Taiwan. China maintains that they control Taiwan, and the U.S. has kept this, quote, strategic ambiguity. They support them, but they don't fully commit to defending them. How has the Trump administration approached Taiwan, and how key is it to reaching an agreement on these other issues, like rare earth minerals, for example? Are they related?
I think maybe not so related on rare earths, although I do think the issue with Taiwan. So the long-standing U.S. stance has been to leave it a little ambiguous. Sorry, whether the U.S. would come to Taiwan's aid if there were ever an invasion, and so far the Trump administration has continued along this tack. Although he has parted from past administrations and criticism of Taiwan, suggesting, for example, they don't pay enough protection money, which has raised concerns both in Taipei and Washington of whether the U.S. would actually do that also, or whether the Trump administration might throw Taiwan under the bus, so to speak, in pursuit of a deal. He was reportedly to have denied President Lai of Taiwan a transit through the U.S. recently, and also froze a major arms sale to Taiwan. So that also fed into the into the narrative of, is this going to be done in service of a Chinese deal? But I think it's a little early to tell. I would say that this is a separate issue on rare earths. Taiwan is China's basically its reddest of its red lines. And so the U.S. is going to have to be careful how it approaches this. But for now, I don't see, I haven't heard any news that would suggest there's going to be a major policy change on Taiwan, whether to back down from future arms sales or otherwise.
All right, we could be a lot riding on this meeting tonight between President Xi and President Trump. But Micah McCartney, thank you so much for joining us.